It is such an honor for me to be here with all of you. I'm Reverend Janet Childs, and I'm with the UCM Speaker Series, and we have the incredible gift and opportunity to experience Reverend John Simmons and Reverend Lynn Rogers, who are going to talk about us and talk to us and with us and about us in terms of conversations with the angels, our connections with the angels. And it is my privilege to share some facts about these amazing people. Combined, they have over 100 years of experience in the spiritual dimensions. And I'm going to start with John. John has been coming from a lineage of spiritual tradition. His father was a psychic. His mother was a psychic and a spiritual astrologer. And he became aware of his psychic abilities very early in life. He was one of the first male nurses to be getting his RN at San Jose State University, which was a big deal. Back in those days, men were not allowed to be nurses. He has been incredible in terms of his work with the community. He has done so much spiritual healing, but also he has brought his psychic and his spiritual gifts and depth of understanding to crisis situations. He was Volunteer of the Year at the American Red Cross. And let me tell you, I worked with the American Red Cross for many years. That's a high honor. And unless you really, really have worked hard, you will not get it. He was also won a congressional award on the floor of Congress that my coworker had also won many years ago. And it is also not an easy award to get. So John has blended that spiritual energy and connection that he brings to the earth plane with his outreach, his help, his support, his counseling, and his mentorship. But he also brings an amazing opportunity for us to also acknowledge that he's been knighted, and I wanted to share that, the Sovereign Order of St. John. And this is very important because he also was a part of the National Guard. So he's been working with emergency response. And now I want to go to Lynn, our wonderful Lynn, who is a writer of many books, an incredible author, and has done incredible psychic work, psychic readings, an amazing artist, and incredible connection with Edgar Cayce and developing her book, Edgar Cayce and the Eternal Feminine. If you have not read it, I recommend that you read it. It's incredible. It's incredible. She brings, through her workshops and through her writing workshops, she also brings that healing and that comforting way for people to find the gifts of their own spirit. And so it's amazing. She brings to us and has been a part of the UCM family for so many years, as has John. Both of them are longtime pillars of UCM. And what Lynn brings is that just that openness, that spontaneity, that creativity that she can help us awaken. So both of these amazing human beings have had direct connection and conversation with angels. And so I welcome you here today, and we welcome you as a part of UCM. And we were going to light a candle, which has kind of become our speaker series tradition. And this is a candle that has a little origami heart in it. And it's a pale yellow candle with blue and a little titch of purple. And it's to remind us that we are the light for each other, that we create the light. And I'm going to light this in honor of John and Lynn as they take us on a journey of conversations with the angels. And may you feel that light. Well, I'll light it the old-fashioned way with matches.
Well, as we light it, may we ask that the angels join us tonight.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All righty. And let's see, I think there's one more person that wants in. This is great. Here we go. You are that light. And we are connected by the light to angels and the universe. So it is. Welcome, welcome. John, would you like to start?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I'm very honored to be part of the group tonight and have a chance to say a few words. And I did a little bit of research to make sure that I was talking sensibly. In my experience, in almost 60 years with UCM and many years before that, I found that there were people or beings, if they weren't even maybe people, they were beings, they were energies who are there all the time, and they're very much a part of our life. And they're concerned about our growth, about our awareness, about our ability to help ourselves and to help others. And they're always willing to fill in and help out and be a part of our life. And many of the people that I've met have called that force, that energy in life, those people who are there a part of our life, as angels. Now, if you look at history, you can see there are lots of stories about angelic or some higher level force coming into someone's life during a time of emergency and helping to save them from pain or suffering or help them to get what they need to get. It can be all the way from a flat tire on a lonely road where someone shows up and then you go and see that person's picture in the next town and realize they died 100 years ago. All the way from that to battlefield stories, to stories about how somebody came and opened a door you couldn't open when your child was in the bathroom. I know one woman, she was in an apartment and she couldn't get the door open, and a man burst in and said, "I used to live here, I know what to do." He hit the door. He didn't even live in that city anymore, but he'd been walking past and heard her screams and knew that sounded like from his apartment. So these kinds of things happen. So sometimes we're the angel, which is hard to understand, isn't it? And many times it's a being who isn't us, who is on a level far above us. The Bible talks about angels. There are actually, that I know of, 237 different references in the Bible to angels. So if you come from a Christian background, it'll make a lot of sense to you. If you come from other backgrounds, like Buddhists, they don't necessarily talk about angels, but they talk about enlightened people who are in our lives to help us to move forward in our growth. And so if you go to other religions like Judaism, for instance, is very filled with it, just as Christianity is. Islam, the Quran has lots of references to angelic beings helping. So if you look across the broad expanse of human history, you find that angels do seem to appear pretty constantly all through our history. Some of the places in the Bible I thought would be interesting to note, and I listed a few of them here, and I'll talk about them. But I also hope that you'll talk about your experience with angels a little bit later when we have some time for that, because I want to hear, your experiences too. But according to the Bible, spirits are created by God to do His will, ministering of the spirits to serve those. They preceded human beings being created. That's in Genesis 2.1. They live eternally. They were already created when the earth and humanity were created. If you look at Job 1:38, 1 through 7, when the earth was created, the angels shouted for joy. They don't marry. They can discern good versus evil. They're concerned with humans. Luke 15:10. They can fly, teleport, or become a vision in Daniel and Revelations. Both of those talk about the angels teleporting or flying. Ezekiel called them cherubims, and reported they look like winged creatures. And that also exists in the Quran too. The Quran has winged creatures being angels. I don't understand exactly why, but maybe because they could fly. They come in different forms: people, animals, shining, fiery, even invisible. I had a cat once that a psychic told me I would be getting a cat. I did not plan to have a cat. This cat showed up and lived in my house whether I liked it or not. When I had cancer, and years later, when I had cancer, the cat came and rubbed against me very intensely and took the cancer away. Died 2 weeks later from a severe, large cancer in her fat. And the doctors all said, "We don't know what happened to your cancer, but it's gone. So, we don't know what to do." They didn't know whether to treat me or not, but they didn't treat me and I didn't need it. The cat took care of it. That was an angel, no question in my mind. Psalms and Hebrews indicate that the angels are too large a number to count, too many to count. There are thousands and thousands of them. That they're not meant to be worshipped, but they're servants of God. Revelations 19:10. Angels are subject to and serve Christ. That's in Peter 3:22. They have will. They have a will. 1:16. They feel joy and other emotions. Most are faithful to God. Revelations 5:11 and 12. Only 3 angels are actually named in the Bible itself. The Quran also has other angels listed. We Christians sort of borrow from both. we take from wherever we can find it, the information. Michael, Luke, and Lucifer are the ones listed in our Bible. Only one is named as an archangel in the Bible, and that's Michael. Angels are created to glorify God and worship God. They report to God, basically. They're kind of the ones in charge. And they're known as messengers or watchers. They're the ones that God has given responsibility to watch. If you look at the Quran, you'll find Gabriel is there. You'll find Raphael is there. You'll find Michael is there. You'll find other angels are there doing various jobs that aren't necessarily in our Bible that we find them. Ridwan guards heaven. Malik guards hell. And they're given other tasks to help human beings. And I hope you'll think about some events that have happened to you. And this is as we go through the talk. Other religions around the world don't necessarily refer to angels, but they do refer to higher-minded people, to enlightened people. Other religions talk about that, and they talk about enlightened beings, and they don't necessarily refer to them as people. So I think that, in the general sense, is angelic. We can call on angels. In my experience, we can call on angels to help us in times of need. There was a time when I was a child, and I was riding across some very thin ice on a lake, and I fell in and lost my toboggan, floated underwater for a while and saw a bright light and heard my voice, heard my name, and went to that light, and there was an open spot in the ice. And I was able to pull myself with the help of some other people out of the ice. And so I didn't end up dying. I just was very, very cold for a long, long time. When I got home, my grandmother said, "I've never seen a person so blue." But I lived through it. I suspect the angel called my name, and that's why I looked over there and saw that bright spot and climbed through the ice with the help of my friends. There have been other times when I've worked in my job. I won't go into my work too much, but my job was working with very psychotic people who often were very angry, and I had to go see them in the community. I would go to the hotel, the Vendome, or one of the other hotels where they were, or maybe their car, or maybe just their hovel that they had put together. And sometimes they were definitely wanting to hurt somebody, and they never did, even though I would walk in and talk to them and start a conversation. I've had a lot of guns pulled on me, and none of them have ever shot me yet. Sometimes I would go with the police or a plainclothesman, but mostly I was better off just going on my own. And I'll write up some of those stories, most of which would not be believable, but they're still factual. Angels are there with us all the time. They're very much a part of our life. We can express our appreciation of them by praying to God, because when we pray to God, we bring that light and that beautiful energy to our being, to our surrounding, and the angels around us receive it as well. So our prayers are not only helpful to those around us, our friends and ourselves, they're helpful to the angels and helping them do their work too, because they have a pretty big job working with people like us. I think we probably all got stories to share about angels, so I probably have shared enough. I could share more didactic stuff. I'm used to teaching professionals, and so I sometimes get too much into the didactic and not enough into the spiritual. But I might stop now, and I'll add more as we go. But I'll maybe turn it over to Lynn and see what she would like to share. And then if we have any questions, I hope to receive those too. Thank you. Lynn, would you like to say a few words?
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Can you hear me? Good. So
Yes.
John and I kind of go back and forth tonight and then draw you all in. I was looking up more about angels too. The Zoroastrians were actually very big on angels. Their idea of a creator has both shadow and light. And sometimes angels were necessary to bridge the cosmic divide. Interesting, huh? And when humans came and they were estranged in an unfamiliar world, there were angels. So this influenced both Jewish, Christian, and Islamic and apocryphal traditions. The Zoroastrians and the mention of angels with Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu, both the benevolent and the shadow side of their spirituality. The Zoroastrians said we had one guardian angel. In Jewish traditions, angels stand by God, but occasionally can show selected people God's ideas, will, and instruction. Daniel was an angel like the Son of Man. It takes his place. The Kabbalah expresses a lot on angels as an extension of God. The Baha'is have angels. So it goes. And we think of Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel as traditional archangels. And Gabriel being the messenger of God, who talked to Mary about what was to happen to her. And in the Edgar Cayce tradition, which Jacqueline knows a lot about too, the Essenes, which were the more mystical side of the Jews, knew that it was a time where the energy was very difficult in the world, and they sought to bring light. And so there were 11 maidens on the stair. The coming in of Jesus to Mary in Cayce's tradition, they were actually twin souls. And he said that she wouldn't have come in the body either had they not had this shared mission. But it was an angel who indicated which of the maidens would take that role. And because they were such close souls, there was just a coming together in a very unusual way that brought about the baby Jesus, and also the opportunity to bring Christ consciousness at that time. Angels are often thought of as pure spirit without gender. Aurora was the daughter, or Rory, of the angel Lucifer. And let's talk about him because he was God's favorite angel. And my friend Jessica Madigan, who understood Cayce's work as no other, taught kindergarten at one point, and she told the children it was as if a boat tipped and a third of the angels came into this point called Earth. Our destiny, those of us that came in, was to watch over the evolution of the animals and the plants, but we were given free will. And I like to think, like teenagers with the car keys, there was a lot of co-creating and mingling and through self-will into these spheres of Lemuria and prehistory. So you had centaurs and you had winged Pegasuses and mermaids as these mingled co-creatively through the angels, the rebellious angels that wanted to bring the light just a little bit faster. And I say we, because I think we are angels having an earthly experience. And there was another group of angels, Jessica said, the sons and daughters of God, who didn't tip with the spirit of rebellion, and you can know who you are, because if you ask, why me? Why me? You're probably one of those rebellious light angels. And if you were one who simply says it's the will of God and leavens the whole, you might be with the second group. But all of us are journeying through many lifetimes, according to the Cayce readings, to journeying back in attunement with heavenly realms. Edgar Cayce said that we will have one thing the angels don't have after this cycle of experiences, and that is a sense of humor. So moving along with angels, just a little bit more. So I was looking up more about Casey currently on angels. Angelic influences come into our life parallel to what John said as we apply our spiritual ideals the best we can in terms of compassion and truth and uplifting. Those moments when we so need help for the good are the moments when angels come because of walking the spiritual path. And I thought he so beautifully expressed that. I'm going to go back to you for a minute, John. I have more. What do you want to share at this point in general about angels? I'll come back.
Yeah, there have been times in which there was no doubt that an angel intervened. Or God intervened. I think it was through an angel. One time I was called out and I went to a place where there were a bunch of people fighting. And there was a big fist fight going on, and the police hadn't gotten there yet. And I went in to see what I could do. And a guy grabbed me by the throat and brought his fist back to hit me. And I just stood there staring at him. And he put his fist down. And then the police grabbed the guy and dragged him away because they came through the door at that moment. But he didn't hit me. So afterwards, I said to him, "Why did you grab me by the throat and then not hit me?" He said, "I looked at you and your upper lip was quivering so fast I couldn't count the number of times it was going up and down." And he said, "And your face was a bright light." He said, "I figured I better not touch you." So I don't think that was me. I think that was an angel. I think somebody intervened there, and he saw
Absolutely.
it. He was so shaken by it, he couldn't hit me. He just stood back. So there's those kinds of events that are extreme that you hear about and probably have experienced yourself a few times. That's when you know that there's most likely an angel here watching and tracking and keeping things going. And if it gets too crazy, they'll step in. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, well, actually, I was in a spiritual search group in the area in the 70s called ultimately the Family of Man. And I was just barely from my teens, and a woman had come to seek counsel from Marcia Hunter, who led it then. And I was taught to babysit this woman's child. So I went over to this sort of Spanish style house in Campbell. And I was doing the babysitting things. There were a couple dogs, and there was the 5-year-old boy. And the reason that the mother sought counsel is that the father had sadly become involved with heroin, and he had just recently left the house. And so there was that energy there. And I was brushing the little boy's teeth, and all of a sudden he turned around to me like in The Exorcist, and it wasn't the little boy. There was something really awful there. And pressing on him. So the dogs were running in circles, and I was alone in the house, and I didn't know what to do. So I called Marcia, and she said, "Don't worry. We had a dream that a child was in danger of possession. You can handle this. Just command that in the name of the Christ Spirit that it had to leave." And so I struggled alone in that house for a long time, timidly saying it, trying, and it would seem better. And then all of a sudden I would feel this horrible energy in this room, and the child's eyes would change. The animals would run in circles. And so finally, after a long time of this, I called her again, and she said, "Well, you could ask for an angel." And it's going to bring tears to my eyes. So I asked for the angel to help. And as I was asking in that darkened room, I looked in the doorway, and there were the shoulders and the outline of the head in the most beautiful, luminous light that I had ever seen. And I knew I could say with assurance, because the angel was there, that troubled spirit needed to leave the child and leave in the name of the Christ light. And it did. And so that was my first really strong encounter with an angel.
Yes. Well, my friend Pearl Wilkinson was my teacher for a long time. She was a UCM minister, and she had the St. John's Church on 13th Street for many, many, many years. And when she was in it, she was near passing. She was pretty quiet and not doing really well, having a hard time taking care of herself. She was 100 years old. And one day I went to see her. I went to see her every day because she was in a convalescent hospital at that point. I went to see her every day. And one day when I got there, she was lying there very quietly and wouldn't respond. So I went out to the nursing staff and I said, what's the problem? And they said, well, we don't know, but we're checking her vitals. We checked them every 15 minutes for a while. Now we're checking them every hour. We're giving her little sips of water, which she's able to swallow, but she can't speak. And the doctor's done a complete evaluation and can't find any neurological problem. She didn't have a stroke as far as we can tell, but she's not responding. She was that way for 3 days, a little over 3 days. I went to see her on the 4th day, and she sat up in bed and said, okay, tell me what happened. I said, well, I came here. You were apparently almost unconscious, if not unconscious. And for the last 3.5 days, you've been unconscious and the staff couldn't deal with it. But your vital signs have been perfectly okay. Nothing has gone wrong. She said, well, let me tell you what happened. She said, I was laying here thinking I should probably move on because I've been here for 100 years and done almost all I can. And these 2 men walked in suits and ties. They were dressed to the nines. They looked like encyclopedia salesmen. Very thin and very handsome. And they said, Pearl? And I said, yes. They said, you need to come with us. And she said, oh, really? Where are we going? They said, we will show you. And she said, they helped me sit up in bed. And then I stood and I turned, and the wall in my room was now a stairway, and it was glowing. Very well lit stairway going up through the wall and through the ceiling. The ceiling was gone, and there was a stairway. I looked back and saw my body on the bed, and I said, oh, I know what's going on. She figured she'd died. That's what she thought. So she went with them. They took her to a room, and it was a very low lit room, but it was lit well enough. And there was a big book on the table. And they said, now, Pearl, you'll need to read this book, every page, every line, and we'll stand here and answer questions if you have any questions. I'm sure those 2 angels were sent to help her with her questions. So a few times she came to something she didn't want anyone to know about, and it's in the book. And she's very embarrassed. She did some things that weren't the best in life, like we all have. And if you haven't, let me know. But anyway, so she would stop and the angel would say, is there a problem? I can't read this. I don't want anybody to know about it. The angel said, it's in the book. You need to read it. You need to read it and you need to understand it and then move on once you do. This happened a few times to her, more than a few times. Finally, she finished the book. And they said to her, okay, you finished. That's all we need now. And they brought her back to her room, these 2 well-dressed men, like, salesmen, and got her back in bed in her body and walked out the door, just like there wasn't even a stairway anymore. It was the wall and the ceiling. They left like a couple of visitors. And the staff came in and said, oh, you're awake. You're back. You've been gone for a while. We're glad you're back. So when I went to see her, she said, how long have I been gone? I said, almost 4 days. She said, wow. She said, well, that's how long it took me to go read my book and come on back. So that was her personal experience with angels that you couldn't ever doubt that they were angels because nobody even saw them except her. Go ahead, then. If anybody else wants to share something, please do.
I feel that my experience with my late husband, Joe, is really an experience with an angel. He was in many ways a very unselfish person on this earth. He took on a special needs daughter who wasn't his own. He had many wonderful traits. And when he passed, I went to Reverend Tom and Mary's house upset because I hadn't seen him. I give messages, but I couldn't find him. And a month passed or so. And Tom said, well, it was a process for Jesus. It doesn't happen all of a sudden when we cross over through God's other door. But in May, there was a conference. He had died in late February, and I had gone to the conference at Dottie Boone's Center. UCM used that place. And Chris Lucas, who was a man in our church who nearly died years ago in a head-on collision with a teenage drunk driver, but had been miraculously healed by focusing on forgiveness when he was in such dire straits. He was leaving, and I told him that Joe had passed, and it was bright sunlight. And he touched my arm, and he said, he looked deep into my eyes like Lazarus, because he had been to the world of death and beyond. And he said, there is no death. So when he said it, I had my special daughter in the van, and I said bye to him, and we were driving up Highway 17, and I glanced in the rearview mirror. It was a bright sunny day, and there at the back of the van, just slightly floating, was Joe with my physical eyes. And he had pepper and salt hair, but the pepper was growing in now over the white. And he was kind of engineering Joe, I knew he'd been floating along with us for a while. And he was looking out the window in the direction of downtown San Jose, just getting his bearings at being in this other world. And I was so shocked. I said, Vanessa, it's Joe and everything. And he disappeared. And then I looked one more time, and he had his sunglasses he had when I first met him. He was cool Joe, but he was so vividly presently there. And since then, I know that he's been and is a guardian angel over many things. He helps people to cross over to the other side. And when I hear of a friend who suddenly passed peacefully, or someone, I know that Joe was there. So we can have there are archangels, and there are personal guides, those who have known us and watch over us personally. There are teacher souls. After going through the tumultuous experiences as a teenager before finding my spiritual path, in those times of tumult and traveling to Mexico and connecting with Ken Kesey's group and all these dangerous things, I awakened spiritually and had a very vivid dream. I was in a college lecture hall with many levels, and at the top of the level was a very tired-looking male angel with dark circles under his eyes, so glad that I had found my spiritual path because he was tired. So that was another experience of angels. And John is right. We really did want to open up to angels. But before we do that, Tim Morrow is going to play a song. And I didn't know Tim well, but I've had the wonderful experience of finding out about his musical gifts. And we've been able to share my lyrics, illustrations, and his gift of music. And this song is, in a sense, about angels that are going within to connect in these hard times.
Well, good evening. Coming through?
Yes.
Alone, alone, but not alone. I listen to the wind outside, tapping on the window, turning me within. Brave each day with more to come. I wonder when it ends now. My dreams of glory sifting by, I dreamed her coming near but staying far to tantalize my eyes, while I do my best for everyone in these hard times. Keep still with the wind outside. Keep the faith before dawn's light. Brave the day till hope comes to greet us. Alone, alone, but not alone. I turn within the silence, diving deep in night's embrace. I prophesize. Can it be? Oh, can it be? My vision of a dream comes. With compassion I go on. I can live now. So, keep still with the wind outside. Keep faith in dawn's light. Brave the days and hope will come if we let her. If we let her. If we let her. If we let her. By listening with it.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
We thank you, and that song in the chat, we've given a place to find the song, and it is illustrated with images of angels and some of the angels in our very group. So do take a look at it. It's on YouTube, and you can see in the chat how to find it.
Yeah, you can just click on the link I put in the chat there. You can just do that before leaving the meeting.
If you're not as good at doing that, I put a simple way too for the technically challenged. So we have a couple of different ways to enjoy the song. So thank you, Tim, for bringing that, your voice.
Tim or Lynn,
Yeah.
you might have put it in private chat. I'm not seeing it to everyone. Can you resend it, please?
Let's see. Huh.
Is it showing up to everyone? I only see two people's chat. Yeah.
Oh,
Mine
not
says
in my
me.
chat either.
Oh dear.
It's showing up for me.
Yeah, just copy and paste, it says. Just copy and paste this.
Well, mine is a different one, and it says the new original song.
Okay. Tim just
There
did
it
it.
is.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
Got it.
Tim.
And Janet,
I think it only shows if you were here when we put it in the chat. So
Right.
So I
That makes
did it
sense.
again.
well, there's another one also for the where I talk about what channel, and it's actually Lynn Rogers MA, and looking for the song "Listening Within," and we did a couple others too. So
Okay, I just copied and pasted that. And
Thank
so
you.
Everyone
Thank you.
should be
Thank
able
you.
to see that now.
and I
Thank you.
think when you're creating,
Yes, perfect. I'm seeing it. Yeah. Thank you.
thank you. When you're being creative, and Janet knows this, Tim knows this, and I know this, and many of you do. When you're creating and you're really open to the angels, it comes through you in so many ways. And I think that was true of this song because he had the music previously. It had come through him, and he sent it, and I was listening to it. And as I was listening to it alone in the room, all of a sudden the words, I could hear the wind outside and so forth. So I allowed the words to come through, and we have some illustrations. And that is true with our creativity, that the angelic world is a wonderful inspiration and a way that we can bring the light of the Mother, Father, Creator through the angels and through creativity. And I know John and I would like to open up now and hear your angel stories, and we may have things to say to punctuate that. So if someone has a story, an angel story, I want to call on Cheryl because I know Cheryl.
Actually, Jacqueline has her hand up.
I'm
So
sorry.
go ahead, Jacqueline.
Well, actually, my angel story includes UCM. I was mentored by Andre D'Angelo, and he was Canadian, married to Dory D'Angelo, who was a UCM minister. And for years, first time I experienced an angel healing group by one of Andre's students, they asked if anyone wanted to lead a prayer for the person in the middle. And I had been doing that for years. And I led the prayer, and all I can say is I felt the power of God and the love from the angels, and was crying. It's like, whatever this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Mm.
And so eventually I was introduced to Andre D'Angelo, and he was my mentor. He had the First Church of the Angels. Dora D'Angelo was a UCM minister before they formed their own church, or maybe during. She had passed, but every time Andre did an angel healing on me, which Dora D'Angelo was famous for, she's written up in a book as one of the most famous healers in the country because she worked with angels. And she would always was curious about me, would sit in whenever Andre worked on me. And eventually, even though Andre said he never ordained anyone, he ordained me in his First Church of the Angels out of Carmel, California. And through Edgar Casey Group, I had a venture inward group for maybe 15 years that we did, my angel healing group. We started off with skeptics, engineers, 10 of them, and wound up with a mailing list of 5,000. And I still work with angels. But when Andre passed, I was led to UCM to transfer my ministry. So I wanted to share that story because the angels brought me through Dory to UCM.
Wow.
And I
Thank
still
you,
work with
Jacqueline.
angels. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is-
Beautiful story.
Thank you so much. That was powerful, Jacqueline. And
That is-
welcome to UCM.
Yes. Yeah, Reverend Margrave signed my healing papers. I became a healer in 64. And he was one of the people who started the church, and he came to the meeting and signed the paper and all that. And sometimes the energy is so much that I have to be careful. I have to make sure I surround very carefully with the light, because the energy goes out in other rooms and people come in and say, "What's going on here? We're very anxious. We're very nervous. We're feeling good." They have all kinds of reactions to it. So what you've learned and what we are learning here is quite powerful stuff. And it needs to be kind of stabilized and balanced sometimes when it's around other people that aren't expecting it.
If no one else's hand is up, I wanted to call on Reverend Cheryl Paglia, because I know, Cheryl, you've always had a natural sense of those that cross over. Is there anything you wanted to share?
Well, my father was not a very religious person. He would drop us off at Sunday school and then come pick us up, that kind of thing. And we also had a house that we rented out. And one day this man came to see the house, and he never rented it then, but in his short time being there, he started telling us about a past life.
Wow.
I mean, not a past life, but a near-death experience. Well, neither myself nor my father believed in it at that time, and we kind of gave each other the eye, but just let him talk. But then my father died pretty young. He was 55. He had cancer for 5 years. And it was quite a few years after he passed. I was meditating one night. And I also was at the hospital the night he passed. And I heard him in the death rattle. I didn't know what that was. But then later on, when I was meditating one night, I heard this death rattle. And I somehow knew it was my father. And I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I want you to," he didn't say it in words. It was like mental telepathy. That I want you to get your sister Marlene and brother Gary to forgive me because I need to move on. Well, my mother, when I was younger, was put in the mental hospital. And knowing my family, I couldn't go to my sister and my brother and give them this message like that. I would thought they're going to think I'm crazy. So it went on for years, but eventually I gave the message to both of them, and neither one of them could forgive him. So that was one experience. And then I had a grandson that was born prematurely, and then he had cerebral palsy. And when he passed, I got a call from my son, and I went down there and spent the next week or so in the house. And my daughter-in-law was staying with family because she was grieving pretty badly. And I stayed with Robert and my granddaughter. And then one evening, we also had one of the cousins at the house. And the cousin was pretty young. And she was in bed with me. And all of a sudden, we heard Marcelo,
Your grandson.
my grandson, in the house, giving his yell of like glee, because when he was happy, he always did this yell. He didn't really speak anymore, but he would give this yell. So those are some of the things that I experienced. There's others, but
Oh, that's wonderful, Cheryl.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you because you've started a lineup of raised hands. So I would like to. So who raised their hand first? I have Kathleen, Ann, and Chen Li. Who was first? Go ahead, Annie.
No, well, I was going to say Kathleen was first.
Oh, okay. Kathleen, you go right ahead, dear. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Well, there wasn't like kind of any being that I particularly saw this one time. I just sort of attributed something happening to an angel, and I don't know if that's like true or not. But anyway, I had this ailment where it was like, it would cause like sort of just like periodic moments that were kind of like where I might feel like my heart was racing, or that I was like having these momentary lapses of consciousness, but then would come back, and it's like, well, if I'm driving, that would be bad, and I was having these things go on for a while. I remember having a reading with Dottie Boone, and she was like, well, you better figure out what's going on. So I was like driving down Lawrence Expressway, and then I ended up stopping at this gas station that was right next to Kaiser. And so I stopped there, and then the car just wouldn't restart. Couldn't get the car to start. And so it's like the people at the garage there, yeah, we'll look at it. And then in the meantime, I went over to Kaiser and found a doctor. I didn't have a provider, a gynecologist at that time. So I found someone, and kind of like sort of set up the whole appointment to go see that person. And then when I came back, they were saying, oh, the car's fine. And it turned out it was like a really large cyst that needed to be surgically removed. It was probably torsioning and twisting and cutting off circulation. They can be fatal, but I mean, they rarely are so, but they can be so. But that was probably why I was sort of having like those, lapses of consciousness or little circulatory problems. So it's like medical mystery solved. So I attribute maybe angel.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Absolutely. Annie.
Thank you. I've had many, many experiences with angels for my entire life, and mostly involved like saving my baby brother's life when we were in a car and the car door opened and my brother fell out onto the street on a rainy night, and all the traffic suddenly stopped. There was no traffic anywhere nearby, and a man came and handed my baby brother to my mother, and she turned to thank him, and he was gone. I've had experiences of being on the road and suddenly spinning out and all the traffic just being gone and just going straight across and then ending up and facing the right way. But my most profound experience that I really wanted to share was when my life partner, Kathy, was in the hospital on her deathbed. And she had gone into her final moments of, she suddenly started talking. She was talking to teachers and just going a million miles a minute and asking question after question after question after question. And I kept trying to, calm her down. She said, no, just let me talk. And then when she stopped talking, I looked over next to the bed, and from the ceiling all the way down to the floor were these beams of light. Beautiful, beautiful beams of light. And they said to me, my child, she cannot leave you until you release the psychic hooks between you.
Yeah.
So here's what you need to do. And they walked me through releasing all of our psychic hooks. And they gave me the message that her parents, who were in, I believe, North Carolina or Southern California at the time, that they were not going to make it, and that she was trying to hold on to them. And they said, you have to tell her that she can go. And so I went through all the exercises with these beautiful beams, and they stayed with me until everything was completed. And then I started whispering to her, because I had other friends in the room with me. She didn't want me to be alone. I'm not alone. We have everything taken care of. Your parents are not going to make it. You don't have to wait for them. I love you. It's okay to go. And she let out a sigh and let go. And the moment that she let go, the telephone rang in the hospital room, and it was my son. And I said, Kathy just passed, just this moment. He said, I know, Mom, I felt it. And that was just the most amazing and profound angelic experience that I've ever had.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So it's amazing. You gave her a gift to let her go, and Kathleen, you got the gift of life. So
I'd
right.
like to put in there very quickly. I've been with 11 people who passed on as a nurse, and they often wait till the family's gone before they go, and I have to explain that to the family. I also, every time, have seen that look of bliss come across their face, because they see something I don't see. And quite often they look up and they look behind me and they see something wonderful, and they're glad to go. Well, I have to explain to the family, they had to wait till you left before they could go. So, anyway,
Absolutely.
And I had the joy of sitting with her as she let out her last breath.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And I will always remember that and hold that in my heart.
Wonderful. I'm going to add to John. I'm just going to add to John for a minute, because that is so true, John, that sometimes the very closest person steps away, as happened when my aunt was close to passing. She'd had Alzheimer's, was not agitated, but lovely, but completely immobile, and had been there for quite a while. And Reverend Patty Hall Anglin came with me to visit her. And I went down the hall to check for morphine. Patty sang to her, and Patty said she lifted from the bed, looked up at, in radiance, and passed. So what you said is true. Sometimes the earthly love steps aside so that the angelic love can come through. And I know more people have their hands raised.
Yes. Chen?
Yes, I'm on. First of all, I have a few people here online today that I want to thank. Before I share, just because you guys have been tremendous help for my transition in the last, now it's almost a year and a half. First of all, John is laughing. Janet, I will always remember when Reverend Glenn and I met you first time. And we went home and said, oh, wow, that's our singing earth angel. I don't know why. And that was just you. And right now you're glowing. I love it. Your light, the way you're sitting. So you always touch us. Years when we showed up at CCL. And it was special for me to remember because Glenn said it. And I'm bringing up Glenn is because he was my earth angel. Also my minister, sponsor, until Dottie had to step in to help him to finish up towards the end because I resisted. resisted doing the transition. And then many of you know, but for those who don't know, Glenn transitioned to the other realm last year. Prior to that, there were many years I had to take care of him. Before he became a UCM minister, he had near death, and that brought him to become a full reverend and spend his life. So I call it the second part of his life, doing ministerial work, healing, travel the world. And I think the last few months before his transition, he was also getting dementia, late stage dementia. And I remember calling John Simmons up, help, I don't know, is he really seeing something or is he hallucinating? What do I do? And thank you, John, was speaking to you really helped me ground myself to understand not just the medical side, but also the spiritual side, because I just couldn't reach out to the doctors. I don't know what is going on. And since Glenn transition, it's been still, thank you for your monthly meditation and occasional conversation to help guide me, work with Glenn, who is now my guardian angel. And it's wonderful to have that as I learned to receive signal and communication. And Lynn, too, for you sharing what you're able to do, gave me the courage to explore something. I made a promise to Glenn, and not knowing what have I made a promise to do. So I'm learning every day how to communicate and how to receive messages. Like Lynn, you said, they love to play little tricks and surprises on us. Sometimes I'm expecting this and then a total surprise in a different way. I've received musical box turning on by itself, lights turning on. One time I was with Janet and the chime starts ringing, though we look out, there's no wind. So it's wonderful. So thank you all for your support. Corey too. Corey was my life string ringing one time because I zoned out, like John, you said, a couple of days. I have no idea where I went. I was functioning, I would eat, I will still go bathroom and things like that and sleep, but it was just gone. The few days I just totally, and I was in this blissful, peaceful place. Didn't want to come back. And thank God for Corey's ding, 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 are you still there? So thank you, Corey, you're muted. But I'm so thankful for all your support here. It's been a wonderful transition. Now that I understand how to have the guardian angel beyond Glenn, a divine energy to be around. It's a daily little game for me right now still, since I'm still learning. It's like, okay, I asked for a little parking spot in a overly packed place, and here it happens. I take little gift like that. That angel would clear. Like Anne said, the road just open up, right? So
A lovely feeling.
Yeah. What is it, Lynn?
A lovely feeling that sense of being supported and helped.
Yes. And I'm learning to also receive things like, messages for healing. So I'm not good at tuning in yet, but slowly developing that. So thank you. That's all I'm going to share.
Thank you. Are there others with hands raised, Janet?
Not that I see. And I just want to thank you, Chen, for that incredible, expression of how walking daily with the angels, which you do so beautifully,
Yes.
Needs to be held in the comforting arms of us earth angels, right? So we can all hold on to each other, right? No,
Yes,
it's
not easy sometimes. I'm still learning to transition. Oh, and the one thing, actually, I will share one more. 2 days ago, I went to see my niece, who has been medically recovering. part of the reason I came back to help stabilize family. She's doing well, and it's very sweet. The little cat they have just gravitates straight to me. And some of you know I'm allergic to cats. But cat was something that somehow would gravitate to Glenn. So I guess the kitty was sensing Glenn's energy around me. And even my sisters, I mean, the cat belongs to my sister, would not go to her. She just hung out with me. Was so fascinating, and I just sat there noticing. So it's a different feel because I'm more a dog person. The dog would come to me, but this time the kitty cat. So
Message from Glenn. Yes.
thank you.
And I see that Chris Miller has his hand up.
Yes.
Yes, real quick, when my father, who lived to be 96, passed away, Lynn was with me down at the Veterans Affairs VA hospital in LA, and my father just persisted and would not let go. And when my father finished his working career, like working on Voyagers and aerospace items, and I asked him why he was hanging on and why he was sticking around, and he indicated
It was 96.
He was 96, and he indicated that he was concerned about me and my safety in life, that maybe I wasn't ready. But I explained to him in terms that he could relate to, that his soul was like the payload in the body of the rocket to get him there, and the satellite was just to support his soul, and that he had accomplished everything that he needed to do. And, and then we left and went back to the room, which was, what they called something house at the VA. But then he passed a couple of hours later. He relaxed and let go. Of course, we prayed with him before he did go, and everything was complete. It was very interesting how somebody called it the pinnings, the hanging on, why he did not let go. Lynn, did you want to comment on that at all?
I can comment a little bit, Chris, because your father, after he died, I saw him. It was quite a distance to go to whatever the house was where they had friends or family could stay when someone's passing. It was quite a good distance. I mean, you'd have to take a shuttle. And I was in that room, and all of a sudden I felt him in a shadow form outside the glass door. And I know that souls, when they're in between, they can appear kind of to be like a shadow. They're more around earth. And I realized he was still there some. And so later we went with my elderly friend, Jerry Steyer, who lived in LA, knew Casey's work. And we all actually went down to the morgue area, and we were there, and we were saying prayers, outside where he was. And there was no one in the morgue but us at all, asking for his release, his complete release. And then all of a sudden, aloud in this empty morgue, a large door swung closed, and we knew he had heard it, and we were kind of out of there. But after that, I spoke to the Baptist minister who supervised the hospital, and he said he had experienced, in working with those who passed, that death was a process. He talked about the 40 days that we read in the Old and New Testaments, that it was a process. And finally, some days passed, and I visited where Chris's family home had been, and the father had lived alone since the passing of the mother. And we were outside there, and it was an ordinary day, and someone must have played something far away. I think it might have been music by Edith Piaf. But all of a sudden, it was as if crystal light was just raining through the air. It was everywhere. And I had this sense, and I believe Chris did too, that his father had joined his mother and really, really come home. So those are part of the lore of all of our experiences as metaphysical seekers, connecting with angels and the mystical side of life. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. The
When
case
my mother passed away many years before that, I was born on her birthday. We always had a close connection. And when I went to sleep that night, it was like she came to me and took me out of my body, took me out and across the universe, showed me many wonderful things, and just basically saying that this earthly plane is not all there is. There's so much more. And I think John Simmons has talked about his visitors from the UFOs and that, and how he and others have been taken out to be shown that there is just an amazing amount beyond what we see in our plane of existence.
Thank you. I wanted to finish one story about angels and then go back to John, who probably has more to share, and continuing. But I mentioned that story of the fallen angels, and I wanted to tell you where they ended up in that particular myth that Jessica described. She had researched Casey's readings so deeply and profoundly, and she felt there was an implication that the soul who became Jesus later had been that light angel who led a group into this plane with cycles of life and death, had lived in other times and places. He had been Jewish, he had been Black, he'd been many things, along with his companion soul. And for his journey to give an example of how to overcome death with an attitude of compassion and eternity was the finishing of that cycle. And maybe an elder brother soul who paved the way for those of us that have come into the earth as also beings that are angelic, having an earthly experience. So I want to finish the story of the angels. John, did you have some things that have occurred to you that you wanted to share a little bit more about?
I thought of several things, but I'm really interested in hearing what everybody else has to say. So I don't want to. Maybe at the end I'll just kind of sum up some things, but other people have things that they'd like to share. I
think there's a pause in there sharing, and it's a great time for you, John. No hands are raised, so please do share.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak about?
Yeah, no hands are raised, John.
We'd like to share.
Go right ahead.
Okay, well, there's no question in my mind that the angels are with us all the time. There have been several times when I've called on them and just said, I don't know what to do, and they've fixed it. One time I was working on a psychiatric unit, which was a locked ward, and all the patients there were very violent and very difficult. And I was the only man working that night. And one of the female nurses came up the hallway just as a patient came out of his room. And she said to him, "What are you doing here?" Something like that. And, that kind of a threatening statement to a person who's mentally ill isn't a good idea in the middle of the night. And I knew that he was going to just kill her, just whack her really hard, because he looked inflamed. And I was quite a ways away. There wasn't much I could do. And all I could do was I visualized protection. And he stopped. And he looked up.
Where?
Ran back into his room.
Oh my gosh.
She said to me, "What did he see?" I said, "Well, that's for you to figure out." I am sure at that moment, a big angel popped in between them and said, "Don't do that." And then I had to train her not to do that either, not to say those kinds of things, not to be hostile and irritable in the middle of the night with difficult people. But that angel was there instantly and was so tall that this guy just went like this. He just looked up and ran back into his room. So he saw something. He saw something. Go ahead.
Please. I'm thinking of other experiences. My teacher, Jessica, who wrote The Reality of Life After Death long before others and knew Kubler-Ross, but she really pioneered. And so I thought I would communicate with her after she died in '86. And I hadn't yet had a real manifestation of it. It was Christmas, and I was going to Reverend Tom Gary's house to take ministerial training. John came in the 50s. I came in the early 80s. That's how we get the 100 years. But, yeah. And I had arranged a corsage or something to wear was on the mantle, and was taking a bath, and there was nobody here at all. And I was in the bathtub, and all of a sudden I heard as if a giant boulder had come through the window. And I came out, grabbed a towel, got dressed, and came out. And Jessica loved Christmas, and so the things I'd placed on the mantle had flown across the room, like 14 feet across. And I knew Jessica had come through to wish me a Merry Christmas, and she was certainly present in that night's discussion. To me, she was a living angel. They say that a moment of grace occurs when someone sees who you really are and what you can be. And she, who had had a life of many challenges, turned all those challenges into grace. And I actually have a little video about her life. I'll have to send a link to that sometime. And it was she was a moment of grace in my life. And there she was at Christmas. So maybe this stimulates a few more stories of yours. Angels then can be archangels.
Yes, and we do. Yeah, I'm sorry. We do have someone that has raised her hand, our wonderful Donna Christensen.
Yes, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Here we go. I was remembering back to when I worked at New York Hospital in the ICU. It's an ICU, CCU, and there were many critical patients. And I had a small statue of the Virgin Mary. She was only about 2 inches high. And we had these monitors that had a ledge, where the heart rate was shown, the E for M monitors. And I would put that statue on the sickest patient in the unit. And they always made it. I was on night shift. They always made it through the night. And everyone thought I was nuts. But I truly believed in that she was there, to help the sickest patient get through the night. Yes. And I absolutely love that. And I love that memory.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Oh, that is incredible. Thank you, Donna, for trusting that. Thank you for trusting that and doing it. We have
some other folks we haven't heard from. Raha, I know you're listening. Raha Zandafir, Joe, Lauren, people who are muted right now. Tim, Corey, let's see. Anybody else who we haven't heard from who might like to share a story with us?
Okay, I'll throw one out there.
Okay, good.
Oh, please. Oh.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Back in the early days, I belonged to the Sylvia Brown Church.
Yes.
Like she had a church. And in reading some of the material, they said, ask for the angels to protect you, but not just for one day. Ask them to protect you for the rest of your life. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to bother the angels with something like that. And I was like, oh, come on. It's kind of like making them prisoners that you don't have to watch out for me for the rest of my life. So I wasn't going to do that. A couple days later, I'm at a signal light. I'm at the front and I'm waiting. Then it turns green. I'm ready to go. Nobody's moving. It's like there's a big 18-wheeler to my left and there's a car to the right. Nobody's moving. Now, normally when the light turns green, you don't go right away because there's somebody who might be running through the light. But I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Nobody's moving. Isn't somebody going to move? So I started to move, and this car just flew right through the intersection, going through the red light. At that moment, I said, I want the angels to protect me for the rest of my life.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
So until tonight, I was wondering, did that event take place to make me say those words? I'm wondering now.
Also, Robert, you've recently written a book, and in your book, it was some personal accounts and some principles of spiritualism. You have talked about some of your encounters with Robert Ferguson, who links your church with UCM and who's passed into spirit. I wonder if you could share a couple of those stories as well.
Well, I'll tell you that something recently happened. As part of our church, we have mediums that get up and give messages, just short little messages. And one of them gave a message to me, and I think it was Sandy. She says that Bob Ferguson is here. And he's like, he's getting a kick out of this church because he says, this is the first time I've ever started a church without a body. And it is true. It is true because through his messages, he encouraged me to get this church going.
Now tell Bob to help you like his brother helped him.
Oh, okay.
Bob's brother passed ahead of time many years ago.
Walter.
Bob put him to work, and he said, I don't want to have to do this. Bob said, you have to do it. You need to help me with this. So his brother on the other side always went and got the answers for him whenever there was a question. Tell Bob to do that for you.
Yeah, well, he's doing it. He's
Good.
doing it. Yeah.
Good. Put him to work.
Yes.
There you go. Put him to work.
Yes.
Bob. I've got Glenn doing the job for me.
Yes.
Good.
Well, Bob Ferguson helped me write this book. And there's actually a couple sentences that I underlined in the book that I know did not come from me.
Yeah.
Because they came from him. And one of them was about religion is spirituality in a cage. And I thought, whoa, because I wouldn't have come up with that. So I knew that came from him.
Yes. Yes. Bob always told it how it was, even if nobody wanted to hear it.
Yeah. Yes.
Joan Schutz would like to know the name of your book, Bob.
Your Divine Light.
By Robert Ingold.
Yes, that's Ingold. That's my last name.
What's the best way to buy it?
Yeah. On Amazon.
Okay.
On Amazon. There's also a ebook version of it too. Or Kindle.
Good.
Yeah. There's a couple pictures in there that did not turn out at all. They turned out terrible. So I know now not to publish photographs in a book.
Of spirits, right?
Oh, well, not a spirit.
Yeah.
They were just regular pictures.
There are real tricks to that. Real tricks to that.
There's a picture of Robert Ferguson who was giving a talk, and his brother appears right next to him.
Yeah.
And so that picture kind of shows up, and then I blew it up to make it even bigger, and he's like cut off. It's like you can't even see him. It was like,
Yeah.
Thank you, Raha. I see you coming in. May I call on you a little bit?
There she is.
I'd like to.
I don't know if I qualify because I consider myself an atheist, so I don't necessarily believe in angels and stuff, but I sometimes dream of people that are dead or about to die, to the point that my mother is afraid of me every time I call her and ask her to check on so and so. She starts screaming, "Oh no, again, not again."
May I share a little about you, Raha, or not in this group? Just a little about you?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So Raha has been in my writing group for a long time and been very instrumental with it. And she's an engineer, and she came from a very open, progressive family in her country, and then a very repressive regime came in, and we don't talk about it outside of our class because still there are the fears of those repercussions. But she has really brought to life stories of that are very relevant to today, and maybe there'll come a way to publish them one day. But anyway, and she's enjoyed. You came when we were doing the Vespers when Sonia Sharma talked about Hinduism as a cultural celebration, and has always enjoyed the energy here, despite those experiences of repressive religion. She's enjoyed this energy. So,
and I want to thank you, Raha, and just sending you, healing energy and protection energy. We're so grateful you're here.
Much needed, I guess. Anybody who grows up in one of these religious places needs some sort of cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Of repressed childhood anger, of stuff shoved down your throat. Like my parents were really, really angry because they said they're taking over our children because the amount of Arabic I know is they called me an Ayatollah because when there was someone dead in the family and they had to recite something, they no longer had an Ayatollah. They would call bring me because or one of the other kids that grew up under the repressive regime. But on the same note, they were really angry about in a sense, losing their children and
Mhm,
guilt that's put into their children's heads when they're at
mhm,
school. So they were really, really upset about it.
mhm. Your father came to our creative writing group, and
Yes.
he was so warm and a charming person. And he said, she said, I was a woman teaching it. She says anything she wants to. And it was wonderful.
He really liked you. Yeah, she really liked you. He was like, wow, I wish every woman could be like Lynn, do what they want.
Does anyone else have,
Lynn, could I say something?
yes, Joan.
The name of the book is Your Divine
Light. Is that
Light,
it?
your divine light. Yes.
Robert Ingold, and he also has some copies at his service, which is the first and third Sundays in San Jose at the Southside Community Center, and he brings copies to a new and small church that is also shares our spiritualist traditions.
Very good church, very energetic church. If you go there, you'll like it very much because you'll feel the energy.
See, there it
I
is.
wanted actually along that line to share an experience I had there.
That's it.
I'm sorry.
That's the book.
Well, there's the book. Okay.
Yeah, there's the book. Come on,
Okay,
change
thank
screen.
you.
Well,
I had an experience there I wanted to share in light of what we're talking about, and that was there is a man, Avery, who is kind of a co-minister, and he gives messages. And I had been previous to that by myself working on poems that I've tried to write during the pandemic. Last fall, I lost 3 friends to COVID, and I was working on writing one of something pertaining to one of them. And I had the feeling that it wasn't just me writing it, that it was really that person writing it. I didn't say that to anyone. And I went to the church, and when he came to give me a message, he said, I have to give you a message. There's someone, a man who recently died, and he wants to tell you, go on with that poem. He said it should be published. So there was a sense that the angels were around who made that bridge between the other side and here, so that Avery could pick up that message. And we did talk about angels. The Zoroastrians talked about them as that bridge between worlds.
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lynn, I thought I would share an experience I had with my father when he passed away.
Oh, yes. And so in one moment, someone asked, what is the name of Robert's church? Living in Light. Is that it? Independent
Yes.
Spiritualist Church. Thank you, Joan. I'd love to hear it.
My father had a heart attack and was lingering. He didn't die immediately in the heart attack. And he appeared to me, and my father was a tall, good-looking guy and of not many words. He was, of that generation with the strong, silent demeanor. Anyway, he came to me and he said, I never learned the language here. There's not enough words for love in this world. And in other worlds, there are more words for love. And so it's easier and better to show love and to talk about love. And he, of course, during his life, was very reluctant to talk about love or give any indication of that. But I thought that was, he was standing right there in front of me. It was a marvelous experience.
He had experienced those other
Yeah.
Yeah, he was telling you, I'm experiencing this. I've experienced them. Why don't you do it? Yeah. That's great.
And he had a number of times psychic experiences that saved his life that he shared. So he was the angel side of my parents.
Wonderful.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Beautifully said, Joan.
Yes.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And all of the dimensionality in all of this that we're all talking about, I just want to acknowledge it, how rich. It's like a deep fabric with all of these threads.
And who else haven't we heard from who can tell us a little bit about an angel experience?
While you're thinking, I'll talk for a moment.
Please.
My wife grew up in a very nice Catholic family. She's Italian, and they didn't know too much about psychic stuff and all that kind of thing. And I was dating her, and we've been married 52 years. I dated her for 3 years before we got married because I wanted to make sure that for her and so I'm a slow learner. I don't like to jump into things. So I said we have to date for 3 years, and that was okay. Anyway, about the second year we were dating, she goes to her mother, a nice Italian woman, and she says, "Mama, I'm dating a man." She'd already met me. She said, "Oh, I know, it's Johnny." She called me Johnny. She said, "I know, it's Johnny. That's good. That's good." She said, "But you don't know about him." Mama said, "What don't I know about him?" She said, "Well, he talks to dead people." "What do you think of that?" She said, "I don't see anything wrong with that. My mother comes all the time and stands at the foot of my bed when I have problems and tells me what I should do. And sometimes I say, Papa." She said, "So what's the big deal about that?"
I
Rose
see.
said, "I don't believe it. My parents are psychic and I didn't even know." Yeah, the first time I met her father, he said, "You're good. Keep coming back." I'd never met him before, but he already knew me. So, the world is a strange and beautiful place.
That
He
makes
knew
me
you
think,
were good for his Rose.
that makes me think of an experience with my children's father. We were very young, and we suddenly had a special needs daughter, and he may have had Asperger's. It came out later and all these things, but he was trying to work. He wanted to work, but it would sometimes have difficulties, and I wasn't being understanding enough of him, and he had been a little under the weather, and he was working hard and trying, and sometimes because of that he might not hold a job. And all of a sudden in the night I saw a little woman. I mean, she was probably under 5 feet tall, with a 1950s coat, and she floated across the room and put her hand on his head, and she looked at me and shook her head like, "You better take care of him." Come to find out later, writing a book on Alviso and including his great-grandmother, Irma Ridley, she was exactly that height, and she'd come back, to say, "Be nicer to him. This is her great-grandson."
Yep.
And I think those kinds of experiences enrich our lives. Edgar Casey said the spiritual side of life can be the greater part of our experience, even as we're in this material world. And that, again, it's our spiritual development, which for those readings had a lot to do, just as we know in UCM, with expressing compassion, with forbearance, with patience, with all these things. And as we apply ourselves in doing that, he was saying that the angelic influences come close. And that's a way that we can draw the angels in our lives and for others.
That's right. That's right. My mother was in the hospital dying of cancer, and it was moving pretty fast. And so we went to a church in Mountain View, a psychic church. While we were during the church service, the psychic minister stopped and said, "Oh, there's someone here who needs to say hello." And she described my mother to a T, including the floral hats that she liked to wear and the clothing she liked to wear, which she didn't have any in the hospital. She was in the hospital in Mountain View dying. And they described her so well that Rose turned to me and said, "That's your mother." I said, "Yeah." She said, "She passed." I said, "Yeah."
Oh.
So we went straight to the hospital after the session, walked into the room, they were stopped and said, "You can't go in." I said, "We know, she's already passed." "Oh, they've already contacted you." "Okay, go ahead. Go on in." And I said, she said, "They've already contacted you?" I said, "Yeah, about half an hour ago." She said, "Well, that's just exactly when she passed." I said, "I know."
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah. So Rose caught up pretty fast to the psychic stuff.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You know, there's an instance of it in a movie, The Coal Miner's Daughter. Some of you seen the life of Loretta Lynn, who was married very early, and her father was so sad to see her married as a teenager and so far from him. And she's in Washington State and has all these little children and is singing alone on top of the washer and struggling. And one day across the long field near where they were living in a humble house, she sees her father coming, waving to her, and almost reaches her. And then the phone rings and someone tells her he had just passed. So those are experiences of comfort and connection that show us that love goes far beyond the grave, that angels bring that connection for us.
Angels really do bring that connection, because the part I didn't tell you was the psychic said, and she's surrounded by two men. They're helping her because she's very weak. Well, she just passed.
Mm.
The two angels brought her in.
Just like Pearl, your teacher.
Similar to Pearl, except she came back and lived another 6 months after that.
Ah.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I must be doing some good.
Anyone else who wants to share?
I will. I'll share. I was in a circle by Sandy. Bob and Lynn have been in that group, and I'm learning. I'm the little kid in the block trying to figure out. And one of the session, Avery gave me a reading, and boy, was he describing my father right up to it. And I've not told many people that I have very old injury in my neck from 2 whiplash and young age teenage tendonitis from playing musical instrument. And Avery just went straight, you got a neck or some headache going on that this man is trying to tell you, go heal it. Right on, right there. And then,
this was Avery?
Avery, yes.
Avery who?
Avery, the training.
Babin.
Bob, help me.
Oh, it was Avery. Yeah, he was the one that gave the message about the poet too.
There you go. Yeah.
My goodness. Wonderful.
Yeah. So, and he was like, well, you have 2 people. One was my dad. So that was the message. And then he was describing another woman. At first I was like, who is it? And then after he described, I'm like, it's my grandma, who is actually the side where I have more the psychic energy, psychic ability comes from, because that side, I've got an uncle who used to go into trance professionally.
Good. That helps.
Yeah, so that helps. I did not realize some of us growing up had a little bit of this intuition going on, but as we go to school, we get all that shut down. But anyway, grandma was passing me another message, who only she knows I've got a green thumb and I was not working with my plants. And she was like, well, you got to get back to it because it's very healing. You actually will bring more herbal healing work, which I love herbs and all that. So there you go. Only she knows the message. I'm surprised it came true. So I appreciate Avery sharing that. So.
Thank you. Also, Janet, I have to thank you. I have a picture from you of your artwork. I don't know if you can see it up on the wall. It's always in my office, and the other one's downstairs. The other one's downstairs in his bedroom. So we always keep your pictures, one on each floor.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you.
It does to me too. It does to me as well. I think of you every time I see the picture, which is a lot of times.
Yes. Oh, that's such a gift. That is such a gift. Well, I will share about an experience that was just very telling to me. My dad, who had been a medic in World War II, actually came to me when I actually had a gun pointed at me, and he came and he said, Jan, he always called me Jan, it's going to be okay. And then he just kind of swirled away, and the person put down their gun and just walked away.
Oh,
That's it. That's it.
mm. Oh, powerful.
Yeah. So, I mean, our angels are close as our breath.
Yep.
As close as our thoughts, as close as our, emotions, as our heart.
Maybe it would be nice. I'd like to share a brief little meditation to connect with the angels.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Instrumentation would be fine if Tim would be so kind. And so just to take a moment to all of us to breathe in a deep breath and let go of any doubts that we have ever had about not being protected or about being alone. And let's just, as we listen to the music, take a moment to breathe deeply, and to bring ourselves into connection with the higher beings that are around us now. This could be someone who loved you in life and sends her or his love to you. This could be a beloved animal friend, even in spirit now. This could be one of the guardians of the throne of the Mother, Father, Creator, talked about in all faiths and all religions. This is the time in the earth and with events that we ask the angels to move through us, to protect us so that we can do the work we need to do, to help us in our interactions. As we step out the door, maybe we be each day be channels of blessings from the light of the Creator expressed through the angels. And we express our thanks now to the angels that have protected so many of us here with miraculous events, recovering a child who'd been lost from a car, helping in so many ways. Just take a quiet moment now to attune to your angel. Know that you can feel the angel through your heart. There is no barrier. Take a moment to experience your angel as we hear the music. And now bring yourself gently back from your connection with the angel and know that you can ask for angels' protection and for the protection of the angels of your loved ones, whether they are in this world or in other realms. We're thankful to have come together on this wonderful theme tonight and to be part of the group of angels. John, do you have a concluding wish or prayer for us?
I just wish God's blessing on each of us and on each of our angels, and ask you to just turn to your loving family, including the angels, whenever you have a joyous time, a difficult time, or it comes into your mind. Just love them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Each and every one of you has brought such wisdom and such courage to share your stories. And I want to thank Reverends John and Lynn for their exquisite journey down this road that allowed all of us to be able to share and say an amazing thing, about how our connection to the angels is real. And for those of you that may not know, if you've had that connection, I can probably guarantee you might have had it in some way. And so just allow yourself to open up your heart to it, to that experience, and trust yourself, trust your heart, trust your knowing.
Thank you, Tim, for sharing your gift of angelic music. Thank you, Jen,
Yes,
for bringing us together.
it was amazing.
Thank you for allowing me to take part.
It was beautiful, Tim.
God bless you. Thank you for being part of this. I thoroughly and totally enjoyed it.
And we want to invite you to come, if you are able, to our UCM holiday party, which is going to be happening on the 12th of December. And it will be in person and also via Zoom. So it will be the second Tuesday, like we normally have our speaker series, only this will be a gathering where we can come together in community and celebrate, the holiday and the spirit of the holidays for you, and just be able to come together as a family. And it will be a hybrid situation, so we'll be on Zoom and we'll also be in person.
Wonderful.
And we have a big screen at the UCM office, and so just please join us however you can do that. So that's for next month. So in great gratitude, you are the light, we are the light, and we are so grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Please enjoy the song with pictures of angels. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.